Right now, the United States construction industry is missing something like 550,000 skilled workers.
Yeah, it's a massive gap.
It really is. And if you want to know why a standard commercial office build is suddenly running over $1,000 a square foot, or, why a robot dog is currently patrolling a job site in your city,
Which is happening, by the way.
it's totally happening. But to understand why, you really have to look at the massive sort of invisible supply chain storm that's happening right behind the scaffolding.
Right, because it is a completely different landscape than it was even, 5 years ago.
Completely.
We're looking at a fundamental rewiring of how the built environment actually comes together. Just the sheer logistics required to get a steel beam from a foundry to a finished high-rise, it's become exponentially more complicated.
So today, that is exactly our mission. We are taking a deep dive into the 2026 construction reality to decode why building anything right now, and I mean, whether you're looking at a single-family home or a massive commercial skyscraper, why it's become such a high-stakes, insanely complex operation.
And maybe more importantly, how the industry is actually fighting back.
Exactly. We are pulling from a massive stack of sources today. We've got proprietary 2026 pricing and procurement data, some amazing robotics telemetry from a Zaku Ventures report, the CIF Q1 2026 Outlook survey, and a whole flurry of new state and federal regulations.
And when you synthesize all of those different sources, a very clear picture emerges. The old linear model of, simply buying materials and hiring hands, that's dead.
Right.
The board is constantly shifting now.
So whether you are, planning a renovation, looking to invest in real estate, or you are just wildly curious about why the cranes in your city skyline cost so much to operate these days, this deep dive is your shortcut to being well informed.
Let's get into it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the brilliant solutions the industry is coming up with, we first have to understand the sheer financial pressure squeezing builders right now. I mean, the era of flat, predictable pricing is just completely over.
Oh, entirely. We are looking at a macroeconomic perfect storm. Builders used to rely on relatively stable material costs. You could plan a budget and it would hold.
Right, a 2x4 was a 2x4.
Exactly. But now you have this crazy convergence of global forces. You've got ongoing tariffs and geopolitical trade wars actively disrupting the flow of basic materials.
Yeah.
And then you have the tech industry's voracious appetite. The race to build massive data centers for AI. It's swallowing up huge amounts of steel, copper, concrete.
Because they need all that heavy infrastructure.
Right. And that drives material prices up for literally everyone else competing for those exact same resources.
I was actually looking at the Q1 2026 Outlook survey from the Construction Industry Federation, the CIF, and it's wild how global events trickle down to a local concrete pour.
It really is.
A staggering 79% of construction firms reported raw material increases. And they specifically pointed to the recent outbreak of war in Iran causing massive fuel price spikes.
Well, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, construction is, at its core, a heavy logistics business.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You're moving millions of pounds of earth and material. So when global fuel markets panic and diesel spikes, literally every single piece of material costs more to transport, from the manufacturing plant to the supply house to the site.
So local construction budgets just bleed when fuel spikes.
Instantly.
Which brings us to the actual dollars and cents for 2026. The costs per square foot are just all over the map right now.
Give us the breakdown.
Okay, so for commercial builds, warehouses are the cheapest, running somewhere between $100 and $275 per square foot. Offices jump wildly from $240 up to over $1,000 for high-end.
Wow.
Yeah. And healthcare facilities are the most complex, sitting between $450 and over $220 a square foot. And for residential, if you're building a standard 2,000 square foot home, you're sitting somewhere between $330,000 and $760,000.
And that massive range is driven really heavily by the labor shortage we mentioned earlier.
The 550,000 missing workers.
It's exactly. With 500,000 tradespeople missing, labor now accounts for a staggering 45% of total project costs in some markets.
Almost half.
Almost half. The competition for skilled hands is just driving wages up across the board.
But wait, let me push back on this a second. Because if I hear those base square footage numbers, right? Say I want to build a house. Can I just multiply, $200 by 2,000 square feet and say, boom, that's my budget?
I really wish it were that simple. But no, you absolutely cannot.
Why not?
Because those are just the hard costs, the physical materials and the labor to install them. Anyone who has been around real estate knows about the soft costs.
Right. The fun stuff. Permits, insurance.
Exactly. Architectural and engineering fees, contingencies. And what's shocking in the recent data from pricing guides like APRO, the Association of Procurement Professionals, is the sheer scale of the shift.
How big of a shift are we talking?
These hitting soft costs are now adding an extra 15 to 35% right on top of the physical building materials.
Wait, up to 35%?
Yeah. The margins of error are just gone. When soft costs balloon that high, a project can easily be underwater before a single shovel hits the dirt.
That's insane.
The contingency budgets that used to absorb, normal market shocks, they're being eaten up entirely by insurance premiums and super complex engineering requirements.
Okay, so if contractors are losing up to a third of their budget to these ballooning soft costs and the macroeconomic pressures, they can't just absorb that loss. They have to find that money somewhere else.
They do. But the market isn't the only thing driving up costs.
Right. Enter the government.
Yeah. Governments and regulatory bodies are radically changing the rules of what can be built and how it's sourced.
And before we dive into this, we should make it crystal clear to the listener, we are strictly neutrally reporting on these regulations, right?
Absolutely.
Whether you agree with the politics behind these new environmental and sourcing mandates or not, we're not taking a stance. Our focus today is purely on the logistics.
Because for the contractor on the ground, a new law isn't a political debate. It's a massive supply chain hurdle they have to solve by Monday morning.
Exactly. So let's look at the sourcing mandates. Specifically, the Build America, Buy America Act, known as BABA.
Right.
After October 2025, 100% of manufactured products on federal highway projects must be U.S. made. But the real kicker hits in October 2026, right?
Oh, yeah. That's when those projects shift to a strict 55% domestic cost test.
Which means what, exactly, for a builder?
It's a logistical nightmare to track. It means that not only does the final product have to be assembled in the United States, but over 55% of the cost of all the individual components inside that product must also be mined, produced, or manufactured domestically.
Oh, wow. So it's not just the label on the box.
Not at all.
Yeah.
If a contractor is installing, say, a complex electronic highway sign, they can't just buy a U.S. branded unit. They have to actively audit the supply chain of the copper wiring, the LED panels, the internal housing, all to ensure compliance.
And what happens if they miss something?
If they fail that audit, they lose their federal funding entirely.
Good grief. So they are being forced to completely rebuild their supply chains from scratch.
Yes.
And then you look at the electrification and energy mandates, like New York has instituted a 2026 ban on fossil fuel hookups in most new low-rise buildings.
Right, so plumbers and HVAC crews suddenly have to pivot entirely to heat pumps and electric water heaters.
Meanwhile, in California, Title 24 is mandating that new commercial kitchens must be quote-unquote electric-ready.
And, electric-ready sounds really simple on paper.
It does. Just plug it in.
It's not even close.
Yeah.
Mechanically, it requires incredibly complex upfront electrical engineering. Even if a restaurant installs gas stoves today, the electrical panel, the conduit, and the physical space in the walls must be built out to handle the massive amperage required to switch to commercial electric ranges later.
Because electric ranges pull so much power.
Huge amounts. So electrical panels, for that kind of load, are physically larger. They eat into usable square footage. Plus, they are now mandating battery storage to be paired with new rooftop solar installations.
It's just layer upon layer of logistics. But here's where it gets really interesting to me, the whole controversy over the energy codes.
Oh, this is a fascinating debate.
Yeah. So the Department of Energy found that the 2024 International Energy Conservation Code, the IECC, is 7 to 8% more efficient. But there is a fierce debate happening right now in the industry over the next version.
Right. The ACE, which is an energy efficiency advocacy group, is warning that the upcoming 2030 draft of the ICC code might actually stall or reverse this progress.
And the core of their critique comes down to, like, mathematics and evaluation metrics, right?
It does. They are really pushing back against the ICC's proposal to use what's called a simple payback test to determine if a new energy efficiency measure is worth putting into the base code.
Which, I've got to say, just seems like a deeply flawed metric for real estate.
Why's that?
Because using a simple payback test for a building, I mean, that's like refusing to buy a hybrid car because the sticker price is higher, while totally ignoring the thousands of dollars you'll save on gas every single month for the life of the car.
That's a great analogy.
It just looks at the upfront capital costs and completely ignores the long-term operational reality.
Exactly. The simple payback test completely ignores how buildings are actually financed.
Right.
Nobody buys a commercial building entirely in cash up front.
Right.
They are financed over decades through commercial loans and mortgages.
So the monthly cost is what actually matters.
Exactly. So if a better, more efficient HVAC system adds a tiny fraction to your monthly mortgage payment, but reduces your monthly utility bill by double that amount, you are cash positive on day one.
But by stripping those long-term efficiency measures out into a separate optional code appendix, which I think the ICC is proposing to call IECCX, the AC argues the base code is essentially taking a step backward.
Right, because it prioritizes the initial developer's bottom line over the long-term owner's operational costs.
Okay, so map this out for us. You have volatile material prices, a massive labor shortage, and this labyrinth of new sourcing and energy codes just constantly shifting the rule book.
It's overwhelming.
Confronted with all this, builders can't just tell their crews to, swing their hammers faster to make up the margin.
No, you can't outwork a bad supply chain. They have to revolutionize how they buy materials and manage projects before they ever break ground.
Which is exactly why we are seeing this sudden, desperate revolution in back-office procurement.
Yes, they are fighting back with precision data.
Let's dive into the proprietary data we have from field materials, because they highlighted a phenomenon that I just find fascinating. They call it the glove box graveyard.
Oh, the glove box graveyard is the ultimate example of rogue spending that just quietly bleeds project margins dry.
Paint us a picture. How does this happen?
Okay, picture a framing crew. They're hanging drywall, and they run short on a specific box of structural screws. The foreman knows he can't wait 3 days for the back office to cut a formal purchase order.
Because the clock is ticking.
Right, and idle labor is the single most expensive thing on a job site. So the foreman jumps in his truck, drives to the nearest supply house, throws the screws on the company credit card at full retail markup, scribbles the job name on the receipt, and tosses it into the glove box of his truck.
The glove box graveyard. And it completely bypasses all the negotiated corporate pricing the company fought for.
Completely. It incurs a 5 to 10% premium instantly on the unit cost. And structurally, it just destroys the accounting.
I can imagine.
Because that orphan receipt eventually lands on an accountant's desk weeks later, with no purchase order attached, totally ruining the job cost reporting. The office might even order those same screws again from their primary vendor because they didn't know the foreman bought them.
Leaving wasted inventory just sitting in the yard.
Exactly.
So to stop that hemorrhage, smart firms are utilizing these brilliant procurement hacks. Sure, there's the standard strategy of buying bulk materials in the winter when construction slows down and prices dip, but the real game changer mentioned in the reports is the NRFR purchase order.
The not ready for release order.
Yes. Explain how this works.
So an NRFR allows a contractor to issue a purchase order today to lock in the current price of a material, but explicitly schedule the physical delivery for months later when the project actually needs it.
Okay.
You legally own the price, but you don't have to take possession and store the material right then.
It's exactly like booking a cheap flight months in advance to lock in the fare, but keeping your departure date completely flexible for when you actually need to travel.
Yes.
It's essentially a financial hedge against inflation.
It is, but we have to add a really crucial caveat here, because it's not a silver bullet.
Oh, really? Why not?
Well, this strategy works beautifully for small, high-volume items. Think about your MEP consumables, the everyday mechanical, electrical, and plumbing fittings, or thousands of linear feet of copper wire.
Right, stuff that's easy to store.
Exactly. But if you try to do an NRFR for massive, bulky items like precast civil pipes or heavy steel framing studs, the strategy completely falls apart.
Because of the space they take up.
Yes. The vendors will charge you warehousing and laydown yard fees that instantly eat up whatever money you saved by locking in the price early. You really have to understand the physical physics of the materials you are buying.
Which is why human cleverness only goes so far, and the real solution is tech. It's fascinating to see companies using specialized software to fix these massive gaps.
Oh, the tech adoption is accelerating rapidly.
Like cabinet construction, for example. They are using a platform called DIGS to solve what they call the pre-construction visualization gap.
Right, because 2D blueprints are notoriously hard for non-builders to read.
Exactly. They realized that clients often couldn't truly comprehend the spatial reality of a blueprint until the wood was actually framed on site. And that led to later-stage design changes that absolutely blew up budgets and timelines.
Oh, I didn't realize the window would be that small.
Right. Move that wall 3 feet. By using these immersive collaborative platforms early, they align everyone on the reality of the design before the first nail is even driven.
But the real heavy lifter in the back office right now is specialized AI. Platforms like Field Materials AI are plugging the financial leaks that human project managers just don't have the time to catch.
And to be clear to our listeners who follow tech, this isn't the old OCR optical character recognition that just scans a clean PDF.
Oh, no. We all know how easily those old systems broke if a vendor changed their font size or format.
Right. But this new AI actually understands the context of construction logic.
It has to, because field data is incredibly messy. I mean, this AI can look at a crumpled, coffee-stained delivery ticket with messy handwriting from the site, recognize that a scribbled 5 boxes of wire needs to be mathematically converted into linear feet to match the original purchase order, and then flag pricing discrepancies instantly.
That is wild.
It acts like a relentless, automated project manager that just never sleeps.
Okay, so fixing the back office software and plugging those financial leaks is half the battle. But eventually, you still have to build the physical structure.
You still have to pour the concrete.
Right. And that brings us to the hardware. With 550,000 missing workers, the industry is turning to machines. We are fighting back with iron and code.
This is where we shift from the digital to the physical. And the robotics report from Zacco Ventures makes a vital distinction here. We have officially moved past the era of innovation tourism.
Innovation tourism, where a company brings a robot to a site for a day, takes some PR photos for social media, and then packs it away in a closet.
Exactly. The robotics market is now in a state of repeatable production.
Real use cases.
Yes. The robots that are actually succeeding on job sites aren't trying to do everything. They are focusing on highly bounded, repetitive tasks. And the Zacco report categorizes these successful machines into 3 distinct archetypes.
Plotters, grinders, and scouts. Let's break down the mechanisms here.
Let's do it.
First, the plotters. These are the robots translating the digital blueprint directly onto the physical concrete slab, and the Dusty Robotics field printer is the prime example here.
A total game changer for layout.
Right, because a human crew with a tape measure and a chalk line might lay out 8,000 to 15,000 square feet in a shift. The field printer rolls around and prints 40,000 to 70,000 square feet in the exact same time.
With millimeter precision.
Yes. It actually prints the text instructions right onto the floor so the framers know exactly what track goes where.
And the compression of this schedule is where the true return on investment lives.
Okay, so those are the plotters. What about the grinders?
So grinders take over the brutal, ergonomically destructive work. The tie bot is a brilliant example of this.
Tying rebar. Right.
Yeah. And rebar tying doesn't just break backs, it entirely reshapes the critical path of a concrete pour. A skilled human iron worker can tie maybe 40 to 80 intersections an hour.
Okay.
The TieBot is an autonomous gantry system that rolls over the rebar mat. It uses computer vision to actually sense the intersections of the steel, and it ties 300 to 450 intersections an hour.
Wait, 450? That's incredible.
It is. On a large project that yields anywhere from $10,000 to $80,000 in net savings, purely by keeping the pour schedule moving faster and eliminating the bottleneck.
Wow. And finally, you have the scouts. These are entirely focused on data collection. You've got drones flying repeatable, programmed paths over the site, or robot dogs like Spot walking the floors with 360-degree camera.
Right, capturing everything.
They are doing quality assurance by overlaying the physical reality of the site against the building information modeling, the BIM blueprint. So they catch deviations early and provide indisputable photographic evidence that avoids massive legal claims later.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, what's happening to the human workforce is profound.
How so?
Field staff aren't being replaced by these machines. The person who used to manually tie rebar or snap chalk lines, they're evolving into a robot technologist. They are supervising fleets, planning missions, and interpreting the telemetry.
Okay, but I have to ask the sci-fi question here. With all this AI advancement, are we going to see humanoid robots in hard hats walking onto the site, picking up a hammer, and framing a wall anytime soon?
It's a great question, but the Zacco report firmly pushes back on that idea. Humanoids are hype, task robots are real.
Wait, really? Why the hard line against humanoids? They look so cool in the demos.
Think about the physics of the environment. A construction site is chaotic. It's dusty, uneven, covered in debris, and constantly changing.
True.
A general-purpose humanoid trying to balance on 2 legs while swinging a hammer is incredibly complex and highly prone to failure. But a specialized machine like a plotter sitting low to the ground on continuous tracks or a grinder suspended on a rigid gantry over a rebar mat will always beat a humanoid in that specific environment. Specialized geometry wins in chaos.
That makes total sense. Form follows function.
Exactly.
Well, looking back at everything we've covered today, what a journey. We started with the invisible supply chain storm, the geopolitical fuel spikes, trade wars, and the massive labor shortage.
The macro forces.
Right. And then we navigated the regulatory maze of state and federal rules, unpacking the logistical nightmares of domestic cost tests and simple payback metrics.
Which is enough to make anyone's head spin.
Truly. But we also saw how the industry is fighting back. Utilizing clever NRFR procurement hacks, deploying context-aware AI to stop rogue spending, and bringing in fleets of plotters, grinders, and scouts to get the physical work done.
The buildings you walk into every single day are the result of this incredible high-stakes choreography. It is a marvel that anything gets built at all, let alone built well.
It leaves me with such a deep appreciation for the industry. But before we wrap up, you mentioned something earlier about data collection with those scout robots that I think leads to a fascinating final thought for us to chew on.
Yeah, this raises an important question about the future of real estate. As these robots, the scouts, the plotters, the AI procurement tools, as they increasingly capture every square inch of a building during construction, a building is no longer just a physical structure of steel and concrete.
Right, it's something more.
It becomes a highly detailed living dataset. A permanent digital twin exists in the cloud long after the drywall goes up.
So how might that digital twin change things decades from now? I mean, how will a living data set of exactly where every wire, pipe, and structural screw is located change how we insure our homes?
Or how we renovate our offices.
Yeah. Or even how we interact with the spaces we live in long after the robots have left the site.
It changes the entire life cycle of the building. The construction phase is really just the birth of that data.
It really is a whole new world. It turns out building in 2026 isn't a linear process. It is the creation of living, breathing machines.
It absolutely is.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. We hope it gave you some incredible insights. And as always, we invite you to keep questioning the world around you.